The Dave LewAllen Podcast is sponsored by Sherm's Candy, a Michigan based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan. And welcome back to the Dave LewAllen Podcast. We cover sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers in our community and across Southeast Michigan. And we are on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, any place you go for your favorite podcast. Certainly happy to have you with us today as we help tell the story of the 60th anniversary year of the Ark, the folk and roots music venue in downtown Ann Arbor. And to help me do that today, Marianne James, the executive director of the Ark, and Barb Chaffer, author, the marketing director of the Ark, joining us today. Ladies, thank you so much. I'm excited for this conversation because of the history behind the Ark and what is still happening today in downtown Ann Arbor, celebrating live music. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be here.
Tell me about the history of the Ark for those who maybe have not been there, but should. But its importance in the music scene, folk music, roots music, and helping to develop artists. I mean, this has been a long time successful venue and story, Marianne.
That's true, Dave. And today we're a 400-seat venue in downtown Ann Arbor. But when we started back in 1965, we started through the donation of a building, an old Victorian home to the First Presbyterian Church, which is near Ann Arbor's campus for the University of Michigan. And that was as some will recall and some will have heard of, that was a very turbulent time in our culture, in our world, in our country. The Vietnam War was going on. A lot of things were happening around social justice and the civil rights movement. And some folks will remember that the Students for a Democratic Society was bubbling up right here in Ann Arbor. And when this home was donated to the church, one of the church members, a woman by the name of Kathy Dannemiller, who was known as one of the founders of the Ark, said, I want to create a safe place for young people who think the world needs to change, but they don't believe that you have to blow it up to change it. And that was the genesis of the Ark. They created this music. At the time, it wasn't quite a music venue. It was a club, a folk club, and a coffee house. And then it became this place where music really became the focus for people, the great way to bring people together. And from there, it moved to a second location, became its own 501c3 nonprofit organization. And then beyond that, it moved to downtown Ann Arbor in 1996. And that's how it became this place. And in the meantime, all the things that were happening it was bringing in wonderful artists and helping to develop artists and really creating a place for people to come and listen to these fantastic folk and roots artists.
And the growth over the years and the artists that have appeared, I mean, this doesn't happen overnight. This happens over, a 60-year period, right, to reach the point that you're at today. But take me back to, and if you weren't there, the history, some of those early days of bringing artists there for people to enjoy, and I guess growing from that point in time over the decades.
Sure. Well, folk music is a process. People try to conserve it in amber, but really it's a process. And in the beginning, there was a folk revival going on where people were feeling like we're going to lose our key connections to the old songs. And so the Ark was a venue that was focused initially on the old songs, the traditional songs. And people would get together and sing those songs together. So there were a lot of sing-alongs, there were a lot of traditional artists that came. And because music evolves and because folk is a process that, new artists are creating new songs, new music that then over time gets passed on and becomes part of the culture. And so as music started changing and singer-songwriters started to ascend, and we really have seen really a singer-songwriter movement that hasn't stopped, the ARC realized, hey, this is something that we need to also be part of. And singer-songwriters became a big thing, and also just preserving other kinds of music, bluegrass, country, blues, so all kinds of traditional music that then morphed into what's more contemporary and what's happening today that's going to become the folk music of tomorrow that people think of. These are songs that are getting passed on. So it takes time, and it does take evolution. The ARC today would not be able to present exclusively traditional songs that are in the popular domain. It just, we have to evolve with the music.
And Barb, talk to me in terms of the history, and on the website, it lists basically every performer that's ever appeared on the stage at the ARC. But going back, some of the early names, the Arlo Guthries of the world and beyond, Mary Chapin Carpenter, who is still going strong today. Early years, she appeared at the ARC. So many others as well, from those early days up to today, gracing your stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the things that's so special about the ARC is that because we are mission driven in who we bring in, we're able to stay with artists to introduce them when they aren't known. We bring in artists all the time that are playing at the ARC that are both local, regional, national, international. Doesn't matter where they're from. They might not have an audience. You might not hear them on the radio, but the ARC's mission is to bring that music that deserves to be heard, and that the music that can enrich the human spirit. And we bring those folks onto the ARC stage, and we build an audience for them here. And so then they do come back as they're bigger. They might start, we were talking earlier about like Sierra Hull, some other folks like that who maybe played to audiences of 50 people when they started playing the ARC. But over time, they grow to fill the ARC, and then we will stay with them when we maybe need to go present them in a larger venue, all the way through to the point in their career where they might have smaller rooms again and they come back to the ARC. So yes, we presented Mary Chapin Carpenter. She played an open stage at the ARC when she was still a student, I think, at the time. She wasn't even a professional musician, and she had that experience being on stage at the ARC, and she came and did shows at the ARC in that early part of her career. We were lucky 10 years ago to have her come back and do a special concert at the ARC for our 50th anniversary. Even though she is playing much larger rooms right now, she just announced a show, as we also talked about, over at Michigan Theater. Yeah. So artists like that who play much bigger venues often still come to the ARC even at that point of their careers. Patty Griffin was very well known for saying, I've got new material. I haven't put it out there yet. I want to do that in a room like the ARC because I know that the audience there cares about music. They want to be a part of that. And it feels like a safe space for those artists to maybe not just play the music that everyone knows, but to try something new. So we can serve that role for artists at all stages of their career and stay with them through the full scope of that.
Yeah, and that's really, that's fantastic. And I want to talk more about the audience who comes to the ARC as well and supports the ARC and these musicians. But first, I want to bring in our sponsor of the Dave LewAllen Podcast, and we're so pleased to have Sherm's Candy along with us. Have a sweet tooth and a love for Michigan? Well, Sherm's Candy is the perfect place to satisfy both. Sherm's specializes in delicious candies, all shaped like the Mitten State itself. Choose from classic Michigummies for a delightful taste of gummy goodness, Or if you're looking for a richer flavor experience, indulge in decadent chocolate Michigummies. And for those who prefer a tart and tangy treat, pucker up for sour Michigummies. Sherm's Candy doesn't forget about your furry friends either. They offer Misha Pups, a tasty treat made just for dogs. Many fine retailers across Michigan carry Sherm's Candy, or you can order Sherm's Candy online at shermscandy.com. My guest today on the Dave LewAllen Podcast, Marianne James, Executive Director of the ARC, and Barb Chaffer, Authier, the Marketing Director of the ARC in downtown Ann Arbor, the folk music, roots music venue that has served musicians for 6 decades now. This is the 60th anniversary year. Let's continue the conversation, Marianne and Barb, and talk about the audience. Who comes to the ARC? Who has supported these musicians? Those who are, just beginning their careers, and again, those, as Barb, you mentioned, may come back later in their careers. Who's supporting the musicians on a nightly basis at the ARC?
So that's a great question. And we like to say, David, we don't have an audience, we have audiences. Because we have such a variety of music, it's different every night. And the people who come are people who are music lovers. They're music lovers to their bone. They know music, they know how to be great audience members, and they love the intimacy of the ARC. They're folks that really, many of them have broad taste in music, and they know a great artist when they hear one. They know a great riff when they hear it, so they know how to respond to it. I think back to the artist Matt Watroba, who's been a long time ARC friend, and he's a member of our charter members. But he said years ago, audience members learn from each other how to be a great audience member in a listening room. So in the ARC, from generation to generation, you go to the ARC as a young person, and you kind of see, what is it like to be in this intimate setting, and what is it like to be listening, and then knowing when to applaud and when to interact and when to be quiet and just attentive. So all kinds of people come to the ARC. Barb, what would you say about that?
Well, I was just thinking about, we just did a special event a few weeks ago that was the kickoff for our 60th anniversary in the Folk Fest. And that had all Michigan artists, Southeast Michigan artists, coming and sharing a song from 1965. And almost every single person that got up there to perform talked about their early experiences coming to the ARC with a parent, or coming when they were a student, and now finding themselves up there performing for a sold out house, and how special that experience of coming to the ARC and being part of that community is for folks. I know I first came to the ARC as a college student, and then came back when I moved back to Ann Arbor as a young professional. I came to the ARC first as a volunteer.
Yeah.
So we do, our audiences, a large part of our audience are members, and we should definitely talk about the importance of our members of the ARC. They provide, Marianne probably talked to what the percentage of support that comes from our member program.
Yeah, they are our biggest source of fundraising revenue, and they supply over 10% of our gross revenue and a much bigger percentage of our net revenue every year. So they're incredibly important.
Well, and yes, because you need that ongoing support, and you need the support of the volunteers, as you mentioned as well, because a nonprofit, you thrive by having many hands doing many tasks, right? And you have had volunteers for years at the ARC, and I'm guessing some of those volunteers have offered their services for years to the ARC. Talk about volunteers, the importance, and how does someone get involved with the ARC?
Sure. So we have volunteers at many levels. I think the most obvious is the folks that are there at the club every night. We do over 300 shows a year at the ARC. So they're there ushering behind the bar, taking tickets, and they have been, without a doubt, the backbone of the organization through its whole history. People who are passionate about music and are passionate about, giving back to their community. So there's a great role for them there. And then as a nonprofit organization, we have a volunteer board of directors and we have volunteer committees. So our organization is governed by a volunteer board. And we just had the longest serving board member in the ARC's history step away from the ARC at the end of 2024. That was Bob Gunzel, who's been around for a long, long time. We have charter members who are volunteers. I mentioned Matt Watroba, he's a charter member. Don Postema, one of the original founders of the ARC, is still on the charter members group. So volunteers are so important, and most of them get involved by coming to volunteer at the club. And they can contact the ARC and find out about how to do that. We have an orientation every few weeks, and they learn about the ARC. They show up, and then we throw them in the deep end of the pool, and they come and volunteer. So that's how those folks get involved. And then we have some people who get involved in committees and help do some of the work behind the scenes. So we have over 300 volunteers that are active in the ARC.
That's fantastic. And a little bit earlier, the term listening room was mentioned. And really, the ARC, from my own experience, that is definitely the case. You come to hear these artists, you come to listen to the lyrics, you're listening to the music, you're attentive in that small, intimate room. And I mean, if you love music, I mean, there's nothing like live music and being there to experience all of that. And the ARC gives you that in spades.
That is absolutely true. I mean, the room, like Marianne said, we now seat 400, but it feels much smaller and more intimate in that space. You really can be just a few feet from the performer, and it's the feel of seeing a show, participating in a show at the ARC is very different from other places that I go to see live music, because it does feel like it can be a real conversation in some ways, not obviously talking to the performer, but you feel like you're interacting. You're really, there's a give and a take between the performer and the audience in a listening room space. I always think back to something Susan Werner, who is a longtime performer at the ARC, said that our world is increasingly eyes first. You take everything in and screens and stuff, but the listening room at the ARC is still an ears first environment. And so that music is surrounding you, and that experience is much more coming to you through all your senses, and not just kind of the electronics of our current world. It's, in some ways, just like brings you back to the basics.
Yeah. Marianne, Barb, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add to that, Dave, that, in a world where we have so many choices for music, and back in the day, the ARC was the place that people went to. Some folks went there, 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week. It was exclusively where they went. But now we have so many choices, and the ARC is just another arrow in your quiver if you're a music lover. It's someplace, if you love big arena shows, if you love going to the local bar, whatever if you want to watch things on a screen. But the ARC is a great, great go-to for that whole listening room experience that Barb was describing.
Yeah. Memorable shows that either of you, both of you, have witnessed in your time, either working and or enjoying the ARC yourselves as a customer, as a music enthusiast. What comes to mind for both of you?
Well, I'll start with the biggest, probably the most monumental show that I remember. And that was when John Prine came and played the ARC with Mary Chapin Carpenter. I'm sorry, Maura O'Connell. Maura O'Connell opened for John, and they did a fundraiser concert for the ARC. In that 400-seat room, it was amazing. So that comes immediately to mind. And then another one that's so obscure, but an artist named Michael Cooney played the second ARC. And it was one of my first times at the ARC. I lived just down the street, and I went down there one night just by myself, and I sat in the room. And Michael Cooney, there were maybe 50 people there, but he played a song at the end that he was very well known for, and asked the audience to sing along. And when they broke into 3-part harmonies, you could just watch him, like almost lift off the floor. And he had a
Yeah.
young guitar player with him that was playing along, who just kind of looked up and was amazed. And that said it all to me about what the Ark was at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that I really love at the Arc are when we have events that are in the round performances with more than one performer. And it's something that we've kind of become known for over the years, where we'll bring like 4 or 5 singer songwriters who would typically just do a solo show. And they get up there together, they trade songs, they might back each other up. There's something that's just so organic about those performances that, and it's something that you can't experience anywhere else, where you might see a performer that kind of has their show down, and every time you see them, it's fairly similar. But when we get to do those in the round performances, it's nothing that can be repeated ever. You're getting a really, really special experience. So I mean, I've lost count of the number of those types of performances I've gotten to see over the last 20 years at the Arc. But every single one, when I think back to them, I know that there was something magical about those experiences, and that's my favorite.
Excellent. All right, there's another important aspect of this, the Ann Arbor Folk Festival, which is held yearly, that you both are intimately involved with in terms of organization and delivering. This has been a staple in Ann Arbor as well for years. You've just recently completed the Folk Festival for this year. Give me, Marianne, if you can, the history there. You got the Ark and you got your thing there, certainly, but then the Folk Festival is an extension of that. Tell me how that began and why it's so important to the music scene in Ann Arbor.
Sure, yeah. So going back to John Prine, back in the 70s, 40, 48, 49 years ago, the Ark was in some financial trouble. And they turned to John Prine and also to David Bromberg, who was a longtime friend of the Ark, and said, let's put on a little festival. Let's do it in the winter, where we're not competing with all the other festivals that are going on in the summer, and let's raise some money. And they had great success. It was one night, and it was headlined by John Prine, and David Bromberg was, sort of the catalyst behind bringing a lot of the other artists. And so that was great. They skipped a year, and then they said, we've got to keep doing this. So over the years, it's been a great platform for bringing in not only headlining artists, but that whole process that we talked about earlier of how does folk music evolve? What is that folk process? And so we bring in a lot of developing artists, emerging artists, and that's an opportunity for a much bigger audience in a bigger venue, which is we're now in Hill Auditorium for 2 nights.
Yes.
That's an opportunity to expose those artists to a whole new audience who might not, seek them out, but suddenly they're on a bill with, a bunch of other artists, and people get so excited about hearing those new artists. And then we have these headlining artists that do a fantastic job. So it's just such a rich, rich night. And it's both a musical showcase of what the Ark does. It's a microcosm of what we do all year, but it's also another really important fundraiser for the Ark. It's our biggest event for fundraising and is such a crucial cornerstone of what we need in order to be able to operate year round.
And the people, the artists that you attract on an annual basis, it's a who's who in the music industry.
It absolutely is. I always like the fact that we can bring in someone that's an emerging artist at the time and then see them come back to be one of the headliners later on. People like Ani DeFranco or Josh Ritter, Old Crow Medicine Show. All of these are people that performed at the Folk Fest and maybe were first even recognized and known in the Ann Arbor area because of those opening sets at the Folk Fest. And now they're coming back. They're selling out big auditoriums or headlining the Folk Fest themselves.
Excellent. Marianne James and Barb Chaffer Authier are joining us on the Dave LewAllen Podcast today. Also joining us, our sponsor, Sherm's Candy. So happy to have Sherm's on board with us. Have a sweet tooth and a love for Michigan? Well, Sherm's Candy is the perfect place to satisfy both. Sherm's specializes in delicious candies, all shaped like the Mitten State itself. Choose from classic Michigummies for a delightful taste of gummy goodness. Or if you're looking for a richer flavor experience, indulge in decadent chocolate Michigummies. And for those who prefer a tart and tangy treat, pucker up for sour Michigummies. Sherm's Candy doesn't forget about your furry friends either. They offer Misha Pups, a tasty treat made just for dogs. Many fine retailers across Michigan carry Sherm's Candy, or you can order online at Sherm's Candy, SHURMS, shermscandy.com. Continuing our conversation, the Ark in Ann Arbor, the 60th anniversary year with Marianne and Barb. Excited to be able to spread more awareness of this anniversary year. Other events, you mentioned the kickoff kind of to the 60th anniversary year. Marianne, any other events that you want to point to in this particular year other than the great music that, as you say, you provide over 300 days a year?
Well, we are cooking up a few things. We haven't announced them all yet. We do know that one of the things that we are doing through this year is highlighting partnerships that we have and community. So community is really the focus of our 60th year, both community, the audiences that we talked about earlier, and then partners that we work with, that we have the great opportunity to team up with. And so we're highlighting events like we have an event coming up that we're going to be in Carytown Concert House on March, what is that, 29th?
29th.
Will Hogue is going to be there. And that's the first time we're actually presenting in the Carytown Concert House. So that's going to be really fun. We have a Voices series, which is curated by an artist by the name of Kyler Wilkins. And he does a series throughout the year, which brings in artists of color into the Ark and has interview components. And it's a really wonderful series. So that's a partnership that we're doing. And a few things up our sleeve that we're not ready to quite roll out yet, but some events that we want to do at the Ark and in the community that we're working on right now. What would you add to that, Barb?
We have a longstanding partnership with the Ann Arbor Summer Art Fair, which is the part of the Ann Arbor Art Fair that takes place on Main Street where we're located. So we present a free series of shows on the stage on Main, we call it. So we're hoping to do something special to highlight that event because that's an important community partnership for us. We are getting together with WEMU, which is also celebrating 60 years this year. We're going to have a joint celebration of our 60th anniversaries at the Ann Arbor Summer Festival. Presenting a night of music together there. So lots of opportunities throughout the year for us to work with longstanding partners and really celebrate that whole theme of community.
That's fantastic. All right, a little inside baseball here, if you will, for me. You mentioned over 300 nights of performances at the Ark. How do you decide who's invited or is scheduled? Who does that? Do you reach out? Do artists and their people reach out to you? How do you put together a schedule where you have this many nights of music performances at the Ark? I think it's fascinating.
Well, we're sitting in the office of our program director, Anya Siglin. So we're channeling Anya here, who really is the backbone of our programming. And we do a variety of things, Dave. A lot of the artists tour. They're touring artists, and they may not all make it to bigger venues, but a lot of them can make a career out of touring venues the size of the Ark, a little bigger, a little smaller. And they have booking agents, most of them, that represent them, and management companies that represent them. So there's this whole industry behind what you hear at the Ark. And so a lot of our artists are booked through booking agents and the relationships that Anya has with them. They know the Ark. She knows their roster, and they know when they're sending people out. And so there's a whole network across the country, which is why it's such a COVID was such a dangerous, scary time for our industry, because if you start losing venues in that network, then it's harder and harder for people to tour and maintain tours that are, economically viable for them. So that's one way. Another way is, as Barb mentioned earlier, we just had a big night of local artists for the kickoff for the 60th anniversary, and we booked all those ourselves. And we work with local artists a lot for their the shows that they do, and we do present a lot of regional Michigan-based artists. So that happens too. Anya and other staff members, we all go to conferences and music conferences where we hear artists that we want to try to find out, okay, who's booking that person? How do we get a hold of them? How do we get them in here? So that's an overview of how that happens, and trying to slot in the artists in our calendar. Anya is just, it's like one of those, it's a puzzle. It's like one of those little games. It probably doesn't exist anymore, but back in the day, you had to move this little thing around you had one space, and you had to move everything around and line things up. And that's how it works. So year round, we're constantly bringing in new artists, filling the schedule. We book about anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months out typically. So it's not like a big presenter like UMS who has to book years out. We're booking on a much shorter time frame.
So I know that I check the calendar at the ARC website on a regular basis because of that exact point. You're constantly adding artists and shows. Is that the best thing for someone to do, or how do I find out if I'm new to the ARC or want to get involved? What's the best way of finding out who's coming, and who can I look forward to as a musician I might enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, our website is a great resource for folks. You can always go to thearc.org and check out the calendar. Everything that's booked so far is going to be on there. We've got a tab that's called Support the ARC, where you can get information about how you can become a volunteer. So absolutely, that website is a hub. Folks can also sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can do that right on our website as well. And every week I send out a note highlighting some special events, a particular, highlight one show that's coming up in the next week that you might want to check out. And then also in there is every new show that's going on sale. So there's always a list of, there's 5 more shows or 12 more shows that you can get tickets for now. So that's a great place if you want to be the first one to know who's coming. If you get on that email list, that's going to be the first announcement of those shows come through that. So again, thearc.org. Also, this year, as a special kind of gift to our annual members, we've revived our monthly or bi-monthly print calendar. So we're mailing that calendar to the homes of our annual members for this 60th anniversary year. So if you'd like to become a member and get that sent right to your mailbox, then you can do that too, all at thearc.org.
Excellent. Glad we had this conversation today. I thank you both for your time and wish you continued success in the 60th anniversary year of the ARC. And Marianne and Barb, here's to 60 more.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you back at the ARC real soon.
I'll be there for Sierra Hull for sure, and other artists as well in the future, and we'll look forward to that so much. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Marianne and Barb from the ARC in Ann Arbor joining me today on the Dave LewAllen Podcast. My thanks to Josh Bowen, producer, director, and most of all to you for listening and watching and sharing the podcast with those in your individual network so we continue to grow awareness of the conversations that we have here today, just like ours with the ARC today and Marianne and Barb. Until next time, stay safe, be kind. The Dave LewAllen Podcast is sponsored by Sherm's Candy, a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan.